second broad rubric used for evaluating the strategic options that we have is feasibility. Now, what does feasibility mean? Feasibility means that the assumptions that we make in arriving at that strategic option, are these assumptions realistic, right? For instance, if you have a company which today focuses on a particular kind of technology, right, and the company is moving to a more modern technology, is moving to a more advanced technology, right? For instance, let's look at a company which is in the water purifier market. Now, water purification is a large market in India, right? It's a large and growing market in India. There is no doubt about this. Companies initially targeted this market through filter-oriented water purifiers. Gradually, they have moved to more advanced technologies such as reverse osmosis. A filter-oriented water purifier company, if it wants to move into a RO, a reverse osmosis oriented, reverse osmosis based company, it requires a certain time period to make this change. This time period is required to attract the right kind of people, to assimilate the new technology, to make the changes required in the marketing approaches, and so on. The issue is, does the strategic option that we have at hand, which we are evaluating, does it provide the time required for the company to make these kinds of changes, right? Is the time period that is assumed realistic? This is what we mean by feasibility. And finally, you have the third broad rubric, which is acceptability. Now, this is a very, very critical issue. It's a very, very critical issue because the entire fate of that strategic option can depend on its acceptability by a dominant, a critical stakeholder group. Suitability and feasibility, important criteria though they are, they are not criteria which are life or death situations, right? They are criteria which are really a question of providing time for the company to adjust, to make alterations in case there are mistakes that the company has made. However, in the case of this criteria, in the case of the criteria of acceptability, it's a life or death situation. If the criteria is not acceptable to a dominant stakeholder group, then that particular strategic option will simply not take off, right? The expectations could be in terms of financial expectations. For instance, a strategic option that has come may have a certain element of risk, right? It may have a high reward potential 10 years from now, but there may be a period of 2 or 3 years in between when there is a significant element of risk. A bank or a financial institution which has lent funds to that company may simply not be prepared to accept that kind of risk, and therefore that particular strategic option is a non-starter. Or we look at market expectations, right? Now, just a while back, we were looking at LCD TVs and LED TVs, right? Now, the market today expects companies to promote LED TVs. On the other hand, if the company promotes its LCD TV model, the market is going to react to it very, very unfavorably, right? Now, here again, that particular strategic option based on LCD TVs will just not take off. Expectations of the public, we have several instances where the public have risen in revolt against companies. We were considering in one of the earlier sessions the case of the Coca-Cola plant in Kerala, where there was a perceived misuse of groundwater, and the whole plant had to be removed from that particular area. So meeting the expectations of the public are very critical. And then we ultimately have shareholder comfort with risk level. If a large proportion of shareholders are simply not comfortable with the risk-reward profile of a particular new project that the company has, then the project is a non-starter, right? So, acceptability is the third of the three broad criteria which are used to evaluate a project.